How about vaccines? Does anybody want to talk about vaccines? Does anybody want to get demonetized on YouTube? Everybody put up your hand if you want to get demonetized on YouTube. Me, I do. I want to be demonetized on YouTube. Yes, me. I want a 10-month extension to my demonetization. Danabo's gonna love this video. So Bill Maher and Seth Macfarlane, better known as the creator of Family Guy, or lesser known as the creator of the Cleveland Show, or lesser known as the creator of anything else, Seth Macfarlane went on Bill Maher's show for whatever reason, I don't know, and they started talking about all sorts of stuff until eventually Bill Maher brought up the topic of the big bad, the big needle, big pharmaceutical, big needle coming to inject your children with that Fauci syrup, with the Fauci ouchie. And so Bill Maher wanted to talk to, for whatever reason, comedian Seth Macfarlane about this, and they had a back and forth that I've been told is pretty interesting. Now I've saved this for stream because I wanted to have a genuine reaction to it. So let's check it out together.
Neptune got a tier 4 subscription.
Tier 4, wow.
Dylan, I legally robbed a bank to get this late Xmas gift, lol.
Thank you. I appreciate the tier 4 sub. Also, for anybody else in chat who might be under 18, or I mean, this doesn't even only apply to you. Anybody who's still living with their parents, I do want to say, when you're going to get your mother's or grandfather's or father or grandmother's credit card, check the front and back purse pockets. The front and back purse pockets. Don't just open the big thing that divides it. There's other pockets both within the big compartment in the middle and the front and back purse pockets, okay? And when writing down the information, there's the numbers on the card, and then there's the 3 numbers on the back you need, as well as the expiration date when you're entering all this information, okay? And you will most likely need to know of what brand it is, MasterCard otherwise. But this is information that you could do with whatever. Do with this information as you please. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just letting you know about the different places that typical wine moms keep their credit cards. Anyway, let's continue with this. Let's watch this debate.
But then why are doctors wrong about so much?
Well, they're right about a lot too.
But very often people who aren't doctors have been righter about things.
Like what would be an example of that?
I would think this country did not allow for natural immunity to be considered, and I know this is a subject dear to your heart.
Yes.
Like, even if you had the disease, you still had to get a vaccine. That's powerful, stupid. They don't do that in Europe.
I think they do that here. There's mandatory vaccination in schools.
Right, but if you already had the disease, you have natural immunity. We didn't seem to believe in that.
That was
here.
Debunked, though. I mean, that's
not debunked.
Don't you know people who've had COVID 4 or 5 times? I do. That's not natural immunity. There's no immunity there. You've had COVID 5 times.
Probably because you had too many vaccines. I didn't have COVID.
Did the vaccine gave you COVID?
Well, that's certainly nothing unscientific about the fact that the vaccine, which does weaken you in order to strengthen you.
Says do all vaccines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But while you're in a weakened state, yes. That's why so many people like me got it, did not have it while the thing was raging, and I was taking 0 precautions because I was never that afraid of it.
But that's anecdotal. Like, I've had every booster there is to
anecdotal
have,
that, yeah.
And I have never.
Dude, I'm thinking about this now. I remember, I'm a big boxing fan, and Deontay Wilder, when he lost to Tyson Fury, he threw every excuse out in the book, right? Like, oh, my costume was too heavy. The gloves had the stuffing pulled out of. All he had to say was, I got vaccinated, apparently. And then his weakness level skyrocketed, which allowed Tyson Fury to take advantage of the weakness in his defenses and win the match. This is a great excuse. I need to use this more often.
I had COVID. I get a flu shot once a year. I haven't had the flu in 20 years.
Right. Well, I haven't either, and I don't get a flu shot.
Okay, so this is all anecdotal,
right.
but you know the difference between anecdotal and statistical.
I do.
And statistically, you still have a 90% better chance of not being hospitalized, not dying if you're.
It's true for both people who have not caught COVID and people who have caught COVID, that if you get the Fauci ouchie, at the end of the day, in both scenarios, the odds of you catching it again go lower. But more importantly, and this is what I think is most important for definitely people who are elderly or just generally, if you do end up catching it, as many people have, I've caught it. Many people, other people have caught it. Many people have caught it multiple times, as Seth Macfarlane, Mr. Brian from Family Guy is talking about here. If you catch it, the odds of you dying or having a severe reaction go down. So not only could you possibly save your life, but it also takes strain off of the healthcare system. Everyone remembers, even though it's faded from memory very quickly, because the Biden administration pushed forward vaccination and a COVID response very quickly during his administration, or relatively quickly, relative to the last guy during his administration. But people forget, during the start of the pandemic, there were tons of hospitals that were at capacity. Doctors were horribly overworked. They were having to station people outside of hospitals in some areas because of the amount of infections and severe reactions people were having. And if you don't have a severe reaction, you might still have a cold, you might still catch it, and it's still probably not going to be a pleasant experience. But if it's not necessary for you to go to the hospital because your life's not in danger, not only is that better for you because your life's not in danger, that's also better for everybody else because the hospital system, the healthcare system, is not strained further when those resources are desperately needed elsewhere to deal with other cases of people who did have severe reactions despite the vaccination, or, dealing with something else. I don't know, they ate bleach or beat somebody else's head in with a fushigi, whatever it is. I don't know. But, the resources should be used elsewhere. We already spend so much on healthcare every year as a country. You don't need to spend any more.
Vaccinated.
Okay, but that's assuming all people are alike, and that is one of the giant fallacies in your way of thinking. We are not all alike. Yes, I would recommend and have recommended the COVID vaccine for the high-risk people. Like if you're 90 or fat, get it. Absolutely, you need it. Some people don't.
But you had
Djokovic didn't need it.
But you had
Aaron Rodgers didn't need it.
But you had something like 1,900 kids who died of COVID during the pandemic.
No, I don't think that's right. The New York,
how many of them died from the vaccine? None.
The New York
and the thinking there is that, well, probably most kids are not going to die from COVID, so why bother with the vaccine? Because it's only going to be a few hundred kids, right?
I don't know how many kids died. That seems very high to me. I know at one point the New York Times grossly, talking about misinformation, they had to apologize. They got it completely wrong. She reported something like 900,000 children have been hospitalized, and it was like 63,000. So maybe those facts should be checked.
Papers can get it wrong, and they print retractions, and you know this.
But also, with COVID or from COVID, did 19...
Okay, by the way, can I just throw out there quickly? He said this earlier, and I didn't respond to it because it was right at the start, and I wanted to kind of the back and forth to start. But when you talk about, like, scientists can get it wrong, that's true. And then scientists keep trying until they get it right, through testing, through observations, through the scientific method. That's what they do. But the last thing I would want is to throw away the people who I think have a generally better batting average on these things, better batting average than, like, I don't know, the crystal moms who are proposing alternative medicines, or like reading the stars to find out about, to try to figure out like science and the evolution of man. Yeah, the scientists on average have been able to demonstrably prove their theories in the physical world more than the people who are presenting alternatives. Doctors and medical officials and people who have studied medicine their whole life are on average going to be able to create much better medications and much better treatments and treat people much better than the armchair medical experts who have found out everything they possibly know about vaccinations within an afternoon to a week. Right? Now, I'm not saying that they never get it wrong. What I am saying is I feel much more confident placing my trust in these people. I do have much more confidence placing my trust in people who get it wrong less often, and I have the trust that if they do get it wrong, they're more likely to reverse course if necessary, due to having these processes of review. And to hopefully, when we talk about medical professionals or people who are operating in a field that isn't necessarily partisan, to go beyond partisan politics to just talk about what's medically necessary. Whereas if some, like, I don't know, political commentator with a certain bent goes out and never talked about medical issues before and all of a sudden has all the solution to your medical issues, I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant to believe Fauci hater 1992 on his analysis of COVID response.
100 children die with COVID. Yes, it's a whole different story.
Okay, but take 7 million people worldwide. 7 million people worldwide who died from COVID. Like, if even just a fraction of that is and it's probably a larger fraction who died of COVID than who died with COVID. Even just a fraction of that's still a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yes, but what? Okay,
That's
some people,
7 million people.
Things are, and you cannot prevent that.
You can though. I mean,
I mean, you cannot prevent every single death ever, but you certainly can prevent more deaths from infectious diseases through vaccination. That's the whole point of vaccination. That's how we made certain diseases and certain illnesses that used to ravage the youth of this country, like polio. That's why they're no longer ravaging the country like they used to, even though our vaccine hesitancy has brought some of those diseases back from the grave.
You can prevent.
At what cost?
But what's the cost of getting a vaccine? The
fact that you don't even have a clue what's the cost of getting a vaccine, that you don't know the answer to that.
Wow.
No, you completely want to shut your eyes to the fact that there are repercussions to all medical interventions, including a vaccine. All vaccines, they say side effects just like every medication does. Sure. You can see it in the literature. They can't write it on the back, on the vaccine, so you have to dig them. And of course there is a vaccine court because so many people have been injured. This is not a screed to say don't do vaccines. I'm not against doing vaccines. I'm against doing vaccines that I don't think I need. I should be able to decide that for myself inside my body. But yes, there are pathogens
don't you think that
would come along that I would fight you for.
But don't you think
to get the vaccine?
Okay, that's a good point.
To get the vaccine.
And you bring me to my next point. Don't you think that the vitriol and the aggression towards there's
a certain section of people in this country now, no matter what disease comes around next time there's an infectious disease spread in this country, no matter how deadly it is reported to be, they're just going to stick their head in the sand and say, nope, not falling for this again. I don't know how many people it's going to be, but there's a certain mass of people in this country that no matter what happens, they're just not going to believe it next time. They're just not going to believe it, and they're going to completely ignore it. And so we just got to hope for their sake that in the next, probably like 50 to 60 years, we don't have another event like this.
Anti-vaccination movement, the way it souped itself up during all this, that the next time there is a pandemic, our public health system is so weakened.
Yes,
it's
exactly,
so
because of them and their fucking misinformation that made people skeptical. The fact that everybody came out and said, if you get the vaccine, you cannot get the disease, and then of course that was wrong. And if you get the vaccine, you can't transmit it.
But
and
they were learning right alongside us.
I understand.
They're not. You just said yourself, doctors are often wrong. They are, especially when they're researching a brand new disease.
And I am not blaming them for it. I'm just saying that's why there shouldn't be the science. There's no the in science. That's what you want. You want just to be the one true opinion.
No, that's not true at all.
Well, it is.
No, the strength
and
of
you
science.
Don't want it. You don't know.
The strength of science is that it has the capacity to evolve.
But just acknowledge that vaccines have ill effects on some people.
They do. Of
again,
course they
anecdotally.
Do. But statistically, it's here and it's here. It's like it's people. How many? 7 million people died of COVID. How many people died from the vaccine? Probably a few.
But
I don't know what the number is, but I know it's not 7 million.
If we were more judicious about who needed it versus who it might hurt, which would not be the blanket policy of just everybody, one size fits all.
Yeah, I just throw out there, and Sidechat already said this, but I don't remember any presidential. I don't remember the president. I don't remember any high-ranking official. Maybe people. Maybe I just missed it, saying that if you get vaccinated, it is impossible to get COVID. Maybe somebody said it and I just missed it, but I don't remember Fauci saying that it's impossible to get COVID. You talk about the decreased chances of getting COVID, decreased spread. I've heard, of course, decreased severity and reaction if you get the vaccine. I don't remember the high-ranking official saying specifically, if you get it, it doesn't spread anymore. If you get it, it's impossible to get it. I don't remember that. He's misunderstanding the 90% efficacy or whatever the number was. I have no clue. Maybe he's referring to something I just didn't see. I only have my perspective, right?
Then perhaps we could take down the damages from the vaccine that happened.
But then why vaccinate for anything?
And then take down the...
Why vaccinate for measles? Why not? Why vaccinate for mumps or rubella, pertussis? Why vaccinate for any of those things? Because somebody might get hurt by the vaccine? I mean, why do those vaccines, because COVID is newer?
Well, COVID is newer.
Yes, it's new, but is that the only reason? I mean, this was, by the time you got the vaccine, I don't know if you had it, but by the time I got the vaccine, this was the most tested vaccine in the history of vaccination.
Yes, I had it.
Because
I had to get
so many people by that point had it. It's like by the time it got into my arm, it's like, all right, I think I'm going to be okay.
Okay, well, just so you know, I took one for the team. Okay,
For the team.
So, you know, that should go into it. I did something I did not want to do, and we don't have to talk about that.
What a hero. What a hero. You know, I saw this comparison when talking about this debate that's still going on online, and people compared it. I remember there was like some Twitter comment section that was saying something along the lines of like posting the millionth like NPC mask wearer NPC vaccine meme. And somebody compared it to the internet equivalent of those Japanese soldiers that lasted out on those random islands 30 years after the war, only to be found by like an unsuspecting tourist going around bird watching, just finding this like a guy all huddled in a cave, like skin and bones. There's the war. Have the Americans come? In this case, it's Fauci coming for me. It feels, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels so long ago. And God, with so much going on in the world, I don't know how we have so much time to still go back and forth about this, but I understand, you know, public health is an important issue. But man, the guy from Family Guy, out of all the guys that bring on and go back and forth about it, it's the guy from Family Guy. And that's the guy that got you on your toes too. Look, I'm not trying to shit upon Seth Macfarlane. All I'm saying is I doubt Bill Maher gave him the cheat sheet beforehand saying we're going to be talking about the scene today. We're going to talk about the Fauci ouchie. We're going to be talking about all I'm saying is it dropped in there. He performed pretty well. And it seemed that Bill Maher was complaining about, well, I don't know, something. Anyway, what was Bill Maher's complaint? Well, I think his central complaint was he didn't want to have to be made to do it. And he didn't like the forced consensus on the topic of science. I think those were the complaints. That's the guy that voices Peter Griffin. I think he voices everything, right? I think he does. Last Japanese soldier surrendered in 1974. Is Bill Maher going to be still talking about this when he's in his late 90s, do you think? The social distancing weakened immunity that caused problems, but many less people died overall. Those that got COVID at the start got it worse. The anti-vaxxers spit on people that didn't want to let them into a shop. There's no science to that. The carbon dioxide excuse was just as pathetic as the idea that the vaccine was a plot to control people. Bill Maher won't make it to his 90s. COVID will get him before that. I don't think so. I'm just saying he's created one of the dumbest characters ever, and he's the guy schooling Bill Maher. I mean, a Family Guy, you know, you could say it's dumb or whatever, but I mean, Family Guy made a lot of money, man. And hey, Seth MacFarlane's the not dumb dog in the show, therefore he is intelligent because he is the Brian, and he got ran over by a car.